Howdy YouTube, Unky Joe here, Unky Joe's Playhouse, and today we're going to build a firewall on Hyper-V. If you've seen my previous videos on firewalls, you know I'm a big fan of Carrier control. However, it is a high-end corporate firewall, and it does cost money. And if you're like me, I like open source solutions. Sorry about that, microphone fell. If you're like me, you like free or open source or whatever you can find that's a lower cost, and Carrier control can be cost prohibitive if you're in a home lab environment. So I've done some evaluations. Pardon me, the air conditioning's coming on. It's a warm day here in South Texas. I have done some evaluations on some firewall software, and the one that I came across, well, actually the two that I came across that I like the best that are open source are DDWRT, which I currently have running on my Buffalo router, and PfSense. And I looked at PfSense a few years ago, wasn't real impressed with it. Since then, PfSense has jumped by leaps and bounds, and the big thing for me with firewall software is reporting. I want to be able to see data that's going out on my network through a pretty graphical user interface, and PfSense seems to have that down really well now. So what I'm going to do is show you how I installed it and configured it. You know, I have those two Dell 710 servers. I'm going to install this on my primary Dell server, the one that runs my business. We'll call it 710-1, whatever you want to call it. Actually, its actual name is MCS-HV1 for Hypervisor 1. That is the Dell unit that is always on. And then what I'll do is I'll keep my Buffalo wireless router. I don't use the wireless on it. I only use the router portion of it as a backup, so that if I need to bring down this Dell server, I can just go simply plug that Buffalo router in, move some cables around, and I've still got internet access, because that Buffalo works really well. I have yet to ever crash it. So let's get started. I'm going to tell you what you need, and I'm going to tell you some of the things that you may not know from watching other videos on installing PfSense on Hyper-V. And I forgot this in my last video, and y'all let me get away with it. Nobody caught me. So today, it's 71. You can hear my air conditioning is on because the temperature in this room gets really, really warm if I don't turn it on. And I don't like warm weather. So here's today. It's supposed to get up 73. Tomorrow 65. Looks like we got a little bit of a cold front coming through, and looks like we got some rain out there on the radar trying to develop. And it is overcast and cloudy and just yucky outside. Fortunately, it's not cold and wet, but it's going to be getting there, it looks like. And then hopefully Wednesday, the weather will look a little bit better. Now, let me start off by saying that if you watch some other videos out there on YouTube about installing PfSense and Hyper-V, they make it sound really, really difficult, and it's honestly not. The new version, I believe it's 2.3.2, something like that, installs on Hyper-V without any issues at all. Trust me, I've already done it once, but I'm going to do it again here for you. First thing I want to do is right-click on my network and open my Network and Sharing Center. And if you notice here, I've labeled my NICs. I have four 1 gigabit network cards on that Dell R710. NIC 1 is the one I'm using for my subnet 5, and NIC 3 is the one I am using for my WAN connection. And you're probably looking here and going, well, why is this virtual Ethernet one here and not one for that one? Well, I've told Hyper-V to use this for the management interface, and I've told it not to use this one for the management interface. So when you do that under Hyper-V, it does not create this virtual Ethernet, which is fine with me. Now, what I've done under Hyper-V is I've gone under the virtual switch manager, and you'll see my subnet 5. Even though it's an external network, I allow management operating system to share the network adapter. And then for the WAN adapter, I make that external, but I don't allow management operating system to share this network adapter. So what I'm going to do is just create a new virtual machine. Click on Next. And I'm just going to call it PfSense. This is going to be a Gen 1 machine. And I'm going to give it 2 gig of RAM. I'm actually going to bump this up to 4. because of some of the programs I'm going to be installing onto the system that'll need more memory. And for right now, I'm just going to connect it up to subnet 5. I'm going to give it about a 40 gigabyte hard drive. It really doesn't need to be any larger than that. And I'm going to go and create it under the under my virtual machine hard drive storage, VM store, VHD, and then I've created a folder called PfSense. So I'll select the folder. Next, and I'm going to install an operating system later and finish. And we'll let it create that virtual machine. So now what we want to do is we want to come into the settings on the virtual machine. And the first thing we want to do is we want to add another network adapter, because we're going to need the one for the WAN. So we'll add the WAN adapter and apply it. Sorry, I didn't need to close that. The other thing we want to do is hook up our DVD drive to our image. So I'm going to just go out and browse onto my SAN here under apps. And I've got a folder out here called PfSense. And there it is, PfSense CE 2.3.2 64-bit. So I'm going to open that and apply. And then I'm just going to make sure that it's set to boot from the CD. And that's really all there is to it, to creating the virtual machine. Alright, the next thing we need to do is actually boot that virtual machine off of that ISO file and get the install started. So I'm going to go ahead and right click and just choose connect. And then I'm going to go ahead and power this unit on, the virtual machine. Alright, and then I'm going to choose option number 1 to boot multi-user. Now what it's going to do is it's going to go out there. Now this is built on not Linux but FreeBSD. So it works a little bit differently, but it appears from monitoring everything going by here that you can see it. This new version of PfSense has all the drivers for Hyper-V built into into the core of BSD. That was something the previous version did not have. I'm going to go ahead and choose I for the installer. And I'm not going to change any of these settings. I'm just going to accept them. I'm going to do a quick and easy install and tell it OK. Now, like I said, the previous versions of PfSense you had to use, in order to run it under Hyper-V, it's my understanding you had to use a legacy network adapter. And those could be a little bit slower and flakier under Hyper-V. But in my experience with PfSense, it has the drivers built in. It knows it's Hyper-V aware, and it's also ESXi, and I assume Zen server aware. It knows when it's in a virtualized environment, so you should be fine. Previously to that, like I said, you had to use a legacy network adapters. You don't have to do that anymore. I'm just going to choose standard kernel, and we'll let the installation run. One step you want to get right, a lot of people tell you, if you check out videos and you check out tutorials online for installing it, that you should eject the CD-ROM at this point. You should not. What I tell people to do is go ahead and choose reboot, because it's going to continue to write some stuff to the hard drive here in a moment, namely the boot sector. So you'll let PfSense reboot. It's going to boot off the CD. And you see right here now it's syncing the disk. This is why I tell people don't eject that CD yet. Once it boots up, just turn it off right here. And then you can go up here to the settings and you can remove the ISO image. And now when you start up PfSense, it's going to come up. You just hit enter here. And then it'll auto boot. And you see it's loading the Hyper-V drivers already. It knows it's on Hyper-V. It's Hyper-V aware. I'm sure they get a lot of requests for that. We'll let it come up to a startup window, and it's going to go through a wizard. Alright, so now it's given us a vital piece of information here. So here's how it's identifying my network drivers, and it's saying they're both down. Don't be too concerned about that right now. I'm not going to set up VLANs, so I'm going to tell it no. But pay attention to these MAC addresses here. These are your MAC addresses for what it's labeling. HNO is MAC address 050E. HN1 is 050F. Okay, so it's asking you what WAN interface do you want for the WAN. Now, I typically do HN1 for my WAN, but we need to go out to Hyper-V and we need to verify which one is which. Now, you can only do this after you've booted into PfSense for the first time. And what you do is you right-click here on the PfSense, go to Settings, and let's find out. It wants to know the WAN address first. It wants to know the WAN adapter. So if we click on the little plus sign here next to WAN and go to Advanced, we'll see that 050F is our WAN adapter. So if we come back in here, 050F. So HN1 is the one we need to use for our WAN adapter. Get it? 050F is our WAN adapter here. 050F is HN1. So in here we're going to type in HN1. Press enter. Okay. And now we need to tell it our LAN interface. And we know HN0 is the only one left. So HN0 is going to be our LAN interface. And we press enter. And then it says enter the optional one. And you just hit nothing if finished. And it'll ask us, do we want to proceed? And we'll tell it yes. Now what it's going to do is it's going to try and go out there and determine your WAN IP address through DHCP. And if it gets an IP address, it'll move on. Sometimes it'll stop at that screen for a few minutes. Don't be alarmed. It's not going to hurt anything. And as you can see now, I'm going to go ahead and close this window behind PfSense. But as you can see now, it's identified the WAN using DHCP, and it's identified the LAN using a default IP address of 1.1. All right. So I need to change both of those. But all I'm going to be concerned about right now is the LAN interface here. So I'm going to go ahead and do option number 2 to set interface IP addresses. So I'm going to enter 2 and hit enter. And this is going to be for the LAN address. And I want to enter my new, sorry, didn't have the num lock on there. Then you need to know your subnet mask. So if your subnet mask is 255.255.255.0, you're going to use 24. If it's the other ones, you're going to use 16 or 8. Mine is 255.0, so I'm going to use 24. Okay. Now, what it's wanting is the upstream gateway address. You don't need to put that in there for the LAN. So it says for a LAN, press enter for none. That's what we're going to do. I'm not using IPv6, so I'm going to just hit enter here. And do I want to enable the DHCP server? Well, no, I don't, because I already have one running on my domain controller. So I tell it no. Now, the other thing it's asking is, do you want to revert to HTTP as a web configurator protocol? That's fine. I prefer to use a secure SSL, but for sake of ease, you can just tell it yes. But I'm going to tell it no. I'm going to use HTTPS. And now it tells me here's where I need to go to finish configuring my PfSense router. So if I bring up a browser and go to this IP address, I should be able to get into my router with the default username of PfSense. Of admin, and the password of PfSense. So I'm going to press enter to continue, and it'll come right back up to this screen now. And you can see now that our LAN address is correct and our WAN address is the one that we need to fix. And I'm sorry, I need to clarify one thing. When I talk about WAN, W-A-N, okay, we'll get this straight. Let's talk about LAN first. L-A-N. LAN equals local area network. That's my wireless network, my wired network within my domicile or my home office. WAN equals wide area network. I'm sorry, I'm an old guy. It's a holdover from the early days of IT. You could also call it the cloud. You could also call it the internet. You could also call it any damn thing you want to. But when I say WAN in these videos, it means wide area network or internet or the cloud. All right, just so we got that straight. So let's carry on. So now I'm going to bring up my browser, and I'm just going to go out to that IP address. And it's warning me that it doesn't have a valid SSL certificate. That's fine. We'll just proceed to it anyway. So our login name was admin, and our password was PfSense. Alright, so a wizard's gonna pop up, and it'll guide you through the configuration of PfSense. And I strongly recommend you go ahead and do it. So we'll click next. And it's telling you if you want to go to PfSense Gold, you can subscribe to them. Next. Alright, I'm going to call this PfSense is fine. Actually, I could have just accepted what was in there, couldn't I? Except I want to do it mcs.local is my domain. And I'm going to use 208.67.220.220. And then I'll use 8.8.8.8. And override DNS, I'm going to allow this DNS service to be overwritten by DHCP on the WAN side. Or am I? That's a good question. We'll worry about that later. I need to set my time zone. And again, sorry about the air conditioning in the background, but I am not going to burn up. Now, pay particular attention. Now is our chance to configure our WAN interface. So I have a static IP on my WAN interface, so I'm going to choose static. And I'm going to come down here to the IP address, and it's 192. Lock. I think it's 50.52. Oh no, I don't want it there. I'm sorry. Pay attention, Joe. So down here, I'll put it in my my IP address. 50.52, I think, is the correct one. My subnet mask is 24, and my upstream gateway. They use NAT on my wireless access point to my provider, so that's why I have a public or private IP on my router. And leave everything else set as default. Click on next. It's asked me to verify the LAN interface. And now is a chance where you can go ahead and change that password, which I'm going to do. And click on next and then reload. Alright, I'm going to go ahead and click continue on with PfSense. So let's see. It shows my WAN is up, it shows my LAN is up. It shows I'm on 2.32. It's got my DNS servers down here. Gives me my CPU usage, how much memory is in use, swap usage, disk usage, etc., etc. There's already an update available, but let's just see. Let's go out to the internet, and it appears that PfSense is working. So a couple things I like to do first is I like to come over here to interfaces, and I like to rename my WAN interface. So I'm going to just call it RW WAN. That way I know it's who it is. RW is Ranch Wireless. Okay, and we'll apply it here. So that way when I come back to this status screen, okay, status screen, to the, what is it called, dashboard, it reflects it correctly. The other thing I like to do is add a couple, these are widgets here. I like, let's see, IPsec, picture, thermal sensors, carb sensor, traffic graphs. I know I like that. And let's see here, there's another one I do. Interface statistics. I like that one as well, so that I can monitor the packets in and out on both the wireless and the local, or my internet provider and my local. Sorry, I'm having trouble forming words today. Now, there's a bunch more features and functions that can be used in PfSense, which is why I'm slowly moving over to this firewall now. The other main reason I'm moving over to PfSense is because they now have 24/7 support. So if I were to sell this product to a client, or if I were to put this in place for a client, I would now have the ability to get support if some incident came up and that I needed to support, rather than relying on community support. Because in a commercial environment, you can't wait 2 or 3 days for an answer to a question from a forum. You need answers right away. So I feel a little more comfortable now. I think it's $3.99 a year for two support incidents from Netgate, which is about the going rate for firewall software. And it seems like a reasonable price to pay to me, because what I'll usually do first of all is I'll go out to the forums and ask for help if I don't know how to do something. And then if I can't get the help, then I go to the client and go, okay, we need to pay for support. And then that's what we do. Now I'm going to continue to do update videos on PfSense as I learn more about it. But I just wanted you to see how to install it under Hyper-V, and not to let people scare you and let you think it won't run under Hyper-V for your use. As you can see, it's working just fine. And this is on my 24/7 Dell server. So like I say, if I ever need to bring the server down for maintenance or whatever, I have that Buffalo router in there that's running DDWRT. It's already configured. So all I have to do is move cables and plug it in, and my internet's back up. So time will tell to see how PfSense works. I'm going to run it for at least 60 to 90 days before I start offering this to my customers and replacing what I have in there now. So there you go, ladies and gents. PfSense is installed on Hyper-V. I don't think that could have been much easier than that. I actually had more trouble getting it to run on ESXi than I did on Hyper-V, and yes, I did run it on ESXi, but I don't want to leave that ESXi VMware server running 24 hours a day. I don't want to leave the secondary Dell that I bought running 24 hours a day. These are test units. So I had a couple of choices. I could either run it on that little, I could either continue to run DDWRT on that little Buffalo air station that I have, or I could go ahead and slap PfSense on Hyper-V and let it run on there on a server that's up and running 24 hours a day, 7 days a week anyway. So that's what I decided to do. And again, my videos are not tutorials, they're just how I did them, so your mileage might vary. I like PfSense. It's what I've decided to run here for my business and for my home network, and we'll see how it does over time, and we'll see how it does on Hyper-V. There are some reports about PfSense. It'll run about a week, and then all of a sudden it starts slowing down and consuming lots of resources. I've seen some of those reports out there on the interweb, and I don't know whether they're true or not, or whether somebody just didn't have it configured right, but time will tell as we run it. And again, I'll have additional videos in addition to this one. As I learn new things about PfSense, I'll share them with you. So I hope you found this video informative and entertaining, and if you liked it, give us a like down below, leave your comments down below. If you noticed something I missed, or you're more familiar with PfSense than I am, please chime in and give me your opinions. But I think you find for what we're using for, PfSense is going to be a very good choice. But anyway, thanks for watching. Join us again next time, and we'll see you on the other side.